is that the same quatrain can actually fit the similar patterns to 3 or 4, 5, 6, 7 different events.
Well, that's the whole key to prophecy, is you have to make it obscure enough that it can fit almost any kind of contemporary situation you want to plug in there. And Nostradamus was a master at this. He wrote in a kind of a code sort of way to protect himself largely from disfavor from nobility, if you will, because he would kind of satire his own age. And a lot of people take these things and they say, aha, he's talking about our times, because we tend to see everything through the filter of the early 21st century. For example, in World War II, the Germans thought that Nostradamus' quatrains were talking about their imminent victory, and the Allies thought it was talking about their imminent defeat. And I guess both are right to a degree.
I understand that Nostradamus made reference to a Hitler, and that people actually said that Hitler was Nostradamus' way of signifying Hitler?
Well, because the names are so close, Hitler and Hitler are just a couple letters different. A lot of people thought, this is a reference to Hitler. Actually, Hitler was the medieval name for the Rhine or the Danube River. It's either the Rhine or the Danube. I think it's the Danube. And so it was kind of an ancient name for the river. So what he's really talking about has nothing really to do with Hitler whatsoever. It just happened to be a coincidence that the names were that close together.
So why do people think that Nostradamus is this great seer if basically it was his quatrains are based on present-day events with representations and similarities made thousands of years ago?
Well, a lot of it is because the quatrains are so difficult to understand that if someone comes by and pretends to be an expert on them and tells you this is what it says, the average person doesn't know any different, and they'll go ahead and take their word for it and come away being impressed that Nostradamus got so many things right.
How many things did Nostradamus actually get right, as far as you know, compared to his percentages of being wrong?
Well, obviously, his percentage. Well, it's not that he was wrong. It's just that a lot of what he writes about, we have no idea what he's talking about.
Okay.
And none of these experts do it. So we don't know if he's right or wrong about some of these contemporary things he's writing about. I think the closest he got to a hit was a quatrain he wrote about the king being killed in a joust in 1559. And that actually, he'd say he was going to have his eye taken out from inside a golden cage, which was a reference to his helmet and things like this. And actually, King Henry II of France was killed in a jousting match shortly after he wrote that. That's probably the closest that he ever got to being correct. And of course, it's not that amazing when you consider that King Henry enjoyed jousting, and he did it quite often. It was only a matter of time before he had a rather nasty accident. It may be prophetic. It may have just been a really good guess. He may have been referring to some other king. I don't know, but that's the closest he's ever come to being right.
Okay, let's take a look at Edgar Cayce, the sleeping prophet. Now, a lot of people once again give Edgar Cayce a lot of kudos, and yet, what do we know about him besides the fact that he came up with some rather amazing stuff while he was asleep and. What's his story?
Well, Cayce was actually more or less known as he was called the sleeping prophet. He would talk about people's illnesses. People would come to him and say, I've got this pain in my leg that I've had for years. And he would go into this trance and he would tell them, he would diagnose it basically from the trance. And often these turned out to be fairly accurate. Later on in his other readings, he started talking about future events. He started talking about reincarnation and Atlantis and things like that.
Right.
And that's what we kind of remember him for, more than these prognostications about health issues. But what he said was, that some of it was interesting. A lot of it was very timely. He was a very voluminous reader. He read a lot of stuff, so it was only natural he would pick up information just out of the media that allowed him to make some of these guesses. I think that Edgar Casey was a sincere and honest man who really believed he had this gift, but I do believe he was also picking up information from normal sources and integrating them into his hypnotic states as though they were some sort of a revelation.
You know, we hear that these great seers and prophets gather their information from the Akashic Records. Apparently this is the universal library of all. Do you believe in that?
Well, I don't know. I'm undecided. I've written a book on reincarnation years ago, and I know that there's probably some kind of a record-keeping system, if you will, or some kind of life review. If you want to call it the Akashic Records, that's probably as good a name as anything else. If it helps you understand, then it's probably useful. But I don't think I'd make a big deal about it. I think that it's a tendency to simplify what may be a very complex process of life review, and that made sense to him, and so it may be useful to other people, but I don't really have much use for it myself.
Jeff Danelek's our very special guest, Jeff Allan Danelek. His website is www.ourcuriousworld.com. That's www.ourcuriousworld.com. And we have some late-breaking news that I'd like to share with you, listeners. Bob White, who was a ufologist who claimed years ago to have found a part of a flying saucer or something from outer space, passed away earlier today after an automobile accident that he had 2 weeks ago. So to the family of Bob White, to his friends, colleagues, and to all those who knew Bob, our deepest prayers and condolences are with each and every one of you at this time. And I've had the pleasure of talking to Bob a number of times, and he will always be remembered very kindly in my thoughts and in my prayers. The name of our guest's book, Jeff Allan Danelek's book, is entitled 2012, and it can be purchased at www.llewellyn.com, or if you go to www.ourcuriousworld.com. My name is Rob McConnell. This is the X Zone, and I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break as we continue live and around the world right here on Talkstar. Are you considering calling a psychic to read your situation? Then consider David Champion, a psychic medium for more than 20 years with thousands of readings under his belt. David Champion will make you feel comfortable. He has proven to be honest and accurate. He's a straight shooter. There's no guesswork. What he sees is what you get. While he is a medium, most of the calls focus on relationships, not only love, but work, school, neighbors, and more. Need help with finding a job and preparing for the interview? Are you dealing with people who are obstacles in your path? For more information, go to davidchampion.com, $1.50 per minute paid by credit card with a minimum of 30 minutes. For your reading with David Champion, call 1-877-702-8598. That's 1-877-702-8598. Now you can dial in to listen to the X Zone radio show from anywhere in the world with Rob McConnell 24/7, 365 by dialing 213-401-0080. That's 213-401-0080. If you have a mobile phone or landline, the X Zone radio show with Rob McConnell is now at your beck and call at 213-401-0080. That's 213-401-0080, 24/7, 365.
Well, I just got back from Roswell, where the aliens have been. And if you ask the feds the cause, well, they'll only lie again. Now I'm hunted by the gumshoes, and I'm wanted by the cops, 'cause they think that I might be the guy making circles in the crops. And I know that there's a conspiracy from the voices in my head. Elvis lives, that's clear to me. It's McCartney who is dead. And if the Mars man should come again and take me, I will go. I will take a trip on their rocket ship. God bless the UFO. Give JFK this message. It's the Cuban Army's fault. And I know that Dave Koresh is alive inside a vault. We've seen reports in papers of a guy who knows about a car that runs on chewing gum, but the Arabs rubbed him out. And we loudly warn that America is badly unprepared. With the Cold War through, we need something new that can get you good and scared. Do you wonder just who is warning you of conspiracies today? We're the ones who fill the rumor mill. We are the CIA.
Why does the sun go on shining? Why does the sea rush to shore? Don't they know it's the end of the world? 'Cause you don't love me anymore.
Welcome back to the X Zone. My special guest this hour is Jeff Allan Danelek. His website is www.ourcuriousworld.com. Jeff has another brand new spanking book out. It's called 2012. It's published by our good friends at Llewellyn's. And once again, his website is www.ourcuriousworld.com. In your opinion, after written so many books on whether it's ufology, reincarnation, or now the year 2012, what is the common thread that everyone looks for when stepping outside of what most people call reality and entering into the fringe zone, that zone that you and I discuss all the time?
The incentive for believing in end-time prophecies?
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking about? Yeah. Well, I think that there's a number of reasons that people believe these things. Some people are just, they see the world kind of going to pot in their head, and so they think that this is kind of God going to step in and fix everything. Mm-hmm. That's kind of one of the reasons. I think a lot of it also is because it's exciting. People think that if these things all happen, that's really going to be, pretty spectacular.
Yeah, but excuse me for cutting in, but
sure,
who would actually think that the end of the world is exciting? What kind of nutcase would that be?
Well, you got to think in terms of people whose lives are very sedate. Now, remember, a lot of these prophecies are a series of events happening in short order. The rapture and then the tribulation period and the war of Armageddon, all these stuff. And that can be, to some people who find that, that stuff interesting or exciting. These are your gamers. I don't know, people who are always sitting there playing these videos and stuff. But there are some people like that I've met that are kind of, I think they're sort of into exciting events happening down the road.
Yes, but hasn't the light clicked on for these people yet that there have been so many end-time prophecies that have come to pass and not one of them, thank God, has been right?
I don't think most people think that way. Most people aren't really aware of what happened in the past, and a lot of that's because when a prophecy doesn't come to fruition, it tends to sort of just vanish into the ether. And these people who are making these predictions are not brought out the next day and said, "Hey, what happened here? What's going on? Why wasn't this correct?" They just tend to ignore the fact that it failed and move on to the next date. So this lack of accountability for these people who make these predictions, to me, is I think what keeps driving them, because there's really no downside to making the prediction. Nobody's going to hold you accountable for it if you're wrong.
1-877-528-8255 is toll-free throughout the U.S., Canada, Alaska, and Hawaii. My name is Rob McConnell, and this is the X Zone on Talkstar. My special guest this hour is J. Allan Danelek.